Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I will go through the latest monthly report for Squadron 42. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, in particular to my latest two channel members, A Bad Motherfunker and Ping Wraith. Thank you guys so much for the support. So kicking off with AI, the team spent the month rolling out the Tier 0 engineer behaviour to a key location, which is now fully functional with only a few minor bugs remaining. I do wonder if this is for the Morrow person, the chief engineer on the Idris, although it could just be for general AI engineer maintenance. The work zone usable used by NPCs repairing things received a large refactor, making it easier for the designers to use within their locations. The team also created the ability to inspect with a datapad, and inspect with welding tool at various angles to make it as useful as possible. The AI team also delivered the Macedo usables using blockout animations with motion capture animations currently in the polishing stage, and Search Spot, Railing Lean, Stair Spot and several others are now considered final and ready to be used throughout the levels. I guess this is just to bring a little bit more life and nuance to the Macedo station, but also I would expect a lot of these animations to be shared across other locations. The hygiene behaviour was updated and is now complete, with new animations added for the toilet and shower cubicle, which has been rolled out with bug fixing underway. In fact, we have heard that they've had to increase the toilets on ships, or the sizes of toilets on ships, because AI need a little bit extra room than players do. Finally, work begun on a new gunner behaviour. Currently, NPCs will find and use the ship turrets, but the next step will allow them to rush to the turret if their ship is under attack. And remember that the majority of Squadron 42's AI work, if not all of it really, will be directly used in the PU, in particular when you have hired NPC crewmates. Now for the animation team, they continued to work through scenes working closely with level design on implementation and revision. The facial team created animations for various story scenes, making improvements as new heads came online. And finally, the Vanduul combat continues with focus on melee and searching. I do wonder if we will ever get to see the Vanduul fighting before the release of Squadron 42. Part of me wants to see it beforehand, but then I think seeing it happen for the first time while we're playing Squadron 42 will just give it so much more of an impact. So I'm a little torn as to what I prefer there. So for the character art, they continued to up-res existing content with the most commonly worn outfits scheduled for Quarter 4, and when done, the completion status of all characters will be around 85 to 90%. Very happy to hear that. I'm not sure what remains for them, but knowing that all the characters are nearing their final completion does give me a very good feeling. Also for character art, the skin textures and hair were also updated to bring all characters, including both hero and background characters, to a next-gen quality level. And I do really hope that we get to see this shown off. I would love to see what this next-gen quality level looks like. It'll be great to do a comparison to when we first saw certain characters to what they look like now. But what we see in anything Squadron 42 right now is definitely not the final quality. For environment art, the team continued to work through all campaign locations while leaving enough flexibility to adjust for in-progress design and gameplay elements. For gameplay features, the team spent time looking at track view performance and how it can best support the complexity of the cinematic sequences currently in production. I believe track view is what CIG uses during cutscenes just to give them more control over the whole environment and the whole scene. Alongside several productive optimizations and fixes, sequence updates were broken into smaller individual jobs that can now run through a batch update system to make the most of modern multi-core processors, and they said it was a great success with some sequences seeing a 6-fold improvement. The team also moved the character customizer into the campaign's levels, with the UI currently being converted to building blocks, so a major part of this work is untangling it from the front end so it can be added to any object container in the game. It is now fully working, albeit with blocked out UI, but the team is assessing where they want to take it in both appearance and usability. I think we're going to see some improvements to character heads in the PU for 3.16, but that was mentioned over on the PU monthly report, and I will cover that when I cover that report. For gameplay story, the team started the month polishing utensil interactions in several mess hall scenes before achieving a technical milestone by getting NPCs to walk correctly while holding helmets under either arm, with the team saying, Having managed to solve the helmet problem, we did a rapid sweep through all of the scenes with helmets to update them accordingly. It's been great to see so many scenes take a leap forward and to see the characters holding and interacting with their headwear in a realistic way in game. This is great to hear, and I do wonder if this is one of the reasons why we are yet to be able to carry helmets physically in the PU. It might explain why the work on this feature is one of the last of the player interaction experiences. The team also overhauled the Graves walk and talk in Chapter 5, with Graves being just one of the characters in Squadron 42. Now, work also begun on an emergency handle setup involving prop animation, a particle effect, mesh swapping, and entity setup. This is a particularly complicated task, they say, but the setup is nearing completion and appears to be highly accurate. Soon the team will be able to finalise the scene with all separate elements correctly working together. Now, moving on to the graphics and visual effects programming team, they made further performance improvements to the render profile as well as optimizations to post effects, being depth of field and motion blur, terrain rendering, and fog to maintain the same performance at higher resolutions. They also improved the water shader, and these changes allow shading to be based on available tiled lighting data rather than the nearest environment probe to create more consistent lighting in scene that involve water volumes. They also changed water volume lighting to take into account volumetrics such as clouds and fog, avoiding previous issues where water volumes would ignore local fog volumes when shading. I'm really looking forward to seeing just what level of quality CIG can achieve for their water, especially as I do certainly plan on building a little homestead near a river on one of the planets one day. The team also progressed on the render to texture refactor by implementing region copy for static RTTOs to reuse the existing content instead of re-rendering it. Now, I'm not sure what the O stands for here, maybe just something simple like render to texture objects. But this will ultimately increase performance and save on scene pass usage, so doing God's work. They also rewrote the render to texture atlas packing algorithm to support the new region copy feature, making it more robust and easier to maintain. Finally, graphics looked into validation errors and collated captured Vulkan analytical information for future extensions. For the level design team, the space and dogfighting team expanded some of the patrol spaces at the beginning of the game to better work with the new scanning implementation. They also added wild lines to cockpit comma, making them more contextual and granular. The ongoing AI work progressed well, with specific focus on the Oldman behaviour. I think they are referring to Oldman Colton, who is Mark Hamill's character here, not an old man. And finally, the team further fleshed out the FPS play spaces with additional details, while the social design team continued the significant task of implementing all in-game scenes for review and sign-off. Now, the narrative team, they supported art and design on various levels, generating the dialogue and vignettes needed to help populate areas or clarify intended gameplay. They also created environmental storytelling documents to not only dig deeper into the history and character of a location, but to also provide initial ideas for set dressing, such as appropriate signage and branding. I will say it's so important when we have proper lore in the environment and you can see the reasons why things are the way they are. I think that really speaks to the depth that they're trying to get to with Squadron 42 and Star Citizen in general, because a lot of games don't bother going to that length. Finally, the narrative team planned a potential performance capture shoot for later in the quarter, with the aim to pick up the content originally scheduled before lockdown. This, they say, will include a mixture of PU needs and Squadron 42 scenes. So, on to QA. They continued work on new chapter content, with the wider team picking up testing until an embedded tester is brought in. The team also supported the ongoing Vanduul AI development and general AI function upgrades. It must be so fun testing the AI for the Vanduul. Also, embedded testers are members of the QA team whose only focus is in a single development discipline, where they bring them into that team so they can work closely together and get a better understanding of whatever it is that they're dealing with. For the UI team, they worked on the Aegis and RSI interface styles so they can be used on various interactive screens. Really looking forward to seeing all the various manufacturers get their appropriate ship UI or HUDs. And I think it was also mentioned in the 3.14 post-mortem, which dropped yesterday randomly, that even ship variants could have variations in their HUD UI. I do wonder though when CIG plan to roll out this manufacturer-specific HUDs and whether they will start with just individual ones that and apply them to RSI or apply them all to Aegis, or if they're waiting until all the manufacturer HUDs are done and then roll them out that way. Progress was also made on the upcoming Starmap rework that will be used in both the PU and Squadron 42, and this new Starmap cannot come soon enough. I believe the work on this on the progress tracker finishes around December. Finally, for UI, posters and signage were created to make an unrevealed area feel more lived in and realistic. So no idea what that is, because it's unrevealed. So finally, we have Visual Effects, who have set up a mini strike team for an epic scene featuring a significant number of enemies. That sounds quite interesting. A new particle rig for distant vehicles was created, which will allow cinematics to easily animate a whole set of effects on low poly vehicles. This was well received by the cinematics team, who are looking forward to populating various locations with background action. So there we have it, the Squadron 42 monthly report. Lots going on, but actually a relatively shorter report than normal. I've also left out the engineering segment, as I've asked my friend to hopefully just break it down a little bit more so I can understand it and bring a bit more understanding for you guys as well, because a lot of it was quite technical. But anyway, the PU monthly report, which is where I'll include the engine segment, is in the works, so do expect that someday soon. And if you enjoy my videos, please consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, come and hang out over on twitch.tv/supermacbrothers. You are all more than welcome. The link is below in the description. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that little notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, massive thank you to my patrons and channel members, you guys rock stars. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.